Really nice.
That's a nice way to start things off. Thanks. Hey, it's episode 3 of Comic Art Live, the aftermath of our Comic Art Live show on CAF this past weekend. We're going to look for some feedback from everybody today, or questions, comments on ways to improve it. And I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what our 3 panelists also have to say about it. I can tell you that we were pleasantly surprised with how everything went. We went into the whole thing. I went into it with very low expectations, to be honest with you. I was afraid to promote the show very heavily ahead of time because I was worried about the pressure the server would be under and whether or not we would crash once people started hitting the site. And the great thing about it was that the site actually performed better the more people were on it. So that was a eye-opening experience. So I'm better off with more traffic. So next time we will definitely do a much better job of PR. It was really great. Guys like Glenn and Will both always did a lot of PR in advance for me. So I knew that there were a lot of people pushing the show to people. But
did you get our bill?
I did not get a bill yet. Right. It's probably in the mailing. The mail's pretty slow these days. It
is.
But we were running some numbers and everything, and everything still kind of pans out that the final figures on sales for booths were around $500,000 in the booth. We looked at price ranges for artwork that was listed for sale. And I can give you some general numbers that items that were for sale from $0 to $500 were 900 items. $500 to $1,500 were almost 600 items. $1,500 to $5,000 was 500 items, and then over 5,000 was 332 items. And of those, the highest percentage sales did occur in the 0 to 500 and the 500 to 1,500. There were 134 sales in the 0 to 500 and 60 sales in the 500 to 1,500. But there were also 40 sales in the 1,500 to 5,000, and then 14 sales over 5,000. And the only caveat to all of that is that several sellers had issues where they weren't sure how to set things as sold. And so 60 items got changed to $0. I think that was the seller's way of trying to say it's not for sale anymore. So that kind of skews my numbers because I can't go back. In theory, sure, I could go back and ask those people, the 60 items, what they were priced at originally, which would give us a little bit more data. But the thing is, everything actually worked better than I thought because we went into the show saying the 18 pieces were going to be your back wall. And I wanted the links to your CAF classifieds or your dealer site to be the portfolios on your table, all the extra artwork that was for sale. And what we heard from people directly, and I saw it posted on the CGC forums and other places, was that sellers would say they had 2 sales in their booth, but then they had 5 sales in their CAF classifieds, during the height of the show. And other sellers had talked about having many sales on their sites during that time. And I know that a lot of sellers did do art drops at the same time. So Comic Art Live worked very well as a marketing event, not just for the things that were in your booth, but for the things that were on your site, which was really, I wrote it up that way. But you never know, will the attendees take the time to traverse Comic Art Live, go to your CAF gallery at the same time? But the thing is, they did. And I think, again, I was pleasantly surprised because, you write it up like that, you just don't think people will do it. And they did. And I also heard that there was some premium members that didn't participate in having booths, but they did art drops during that time and they sold. And why did they do the art drops? Because they figured they would capitalize on all those extra eyeballs on the site. So, I knew going into it that everybody was going to kind of find their way to utilize the event as a means of selling. I think Mike wasn't here when I mentioned it earlier when we were chatting in the green room in advance, but there's certain things that I think we can do with the next show to make it even more valuable to booth owners. Letting people sign up for their mailing lists through the booth would be a huge advantage.
When is the next one, Bill?
Well, originally I wanted to do these things quarterly. And so we were planning on end of August for the next one. But right now, we were pretty wiped out after the whole thing. And I realized it was mostly because of the programming. We weren't able to do a lot of organization for the show. fortunately, Mark Hay had stepped in to help me with the panels, and I had somebody help me, in a few other places, or we wouldn't have or the show wouldn't have happened. But so what I'm thinking now is, I think I'd rather have the shows every 4 months, so just do 3 a year. And we're still debating the format. How should the next one really be? I mean, should it be all encompassing and have dealers and collectors and reps? Should maybe the next one be only dealers and be more like an artist be more like a show, or should should maybe one show that we do a year be only collectors? I don't really know. I mean, we're kicking around a lot of things. Obviously, this format worked really well, but
Right.
I think quarterly is too aggressive and might burn people out. I mean, I can't see anyone else doing something like this
I mean, it's really up to what you can handle. I mean, I think right now, given there are no shows, there's nothing to do. I think like every 3 months is great, because it's fantastic to have this event to do. If it's too much work for you, obviously, 4 months. So I mean, I think when we get back to a normal schedule, when people are going to shows, then then maybe you only want to do it twice a year. I don't know. I mean, it becomes less of a, right now it's a great distraction. It's a great thing to have.
Right.
It's fun for the hobby, and it's it's a really good service. So it's really, like, in my opinion, just whatever you can handle.
Right.
It's
Well,
great.
Whatever you can handle, and also fitting in around when shows do return, but also auction schedules. Like
Right.
obviously having
Right.
the same weekend or an adjacent weekend to an auction, may not be the best idea. A large auction, not the weeklies, but
Right.
I pretty much agree with Glenn. I mean, I'm in the same camp. I think right now, as much as you can handle, because there aren't any shows, perhaps smaller shows return towards the end of the year or early next year. Maybe, we'll see. But when they do return, I think you should still have it. But yeah, maybe twice a year, fit it sort of in between con season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we definitely, I don't want to, I really didn't think about the whole Comic Link auction being on that Tuesday. I was trying to space it out between, I remember when I was looking at the schedules, I was trying to look at Heritage's signature auctions and trying to not be around those. And Comic Link is just tough because they have their featured auctions and then they have their focused auctions. And somehow I missed that we were having ours the weekend before theirs. I mean, not that I don't think that really mattered much, but yeah, I mean, I've partnered with all those guys, and I don't want to, I wouldn't want to try to put it in that kind of a schedule. I wouldn't want to put myself against another Comic Art Con schedule once they start back up. But if I could handle every 3 months, I would definitely consider it, because certainly now we have something that, I mean, we could do it again in 2 months if I wanted it, if I didn't want to make it better. But my goal is to solicit more feedback and take everything we learned and apply that to the next show to make it more engaging. One of the biggest problems that I've got feedback from direct, and I saw on CGC forums and whatnot, was, and this worked for both buyers and sellers, had the same problem, was that buyers who came in the first 2 hours, in that first rush, were submitting several purchase requests. And the problem was that some dealers or sellers were, semi overwhelmed. I mean, they're trying to shop at the same time, and yet they're getting these purchase requests. Well, what happened was there were buyers who had a budget, submitted their 5 or 6 purchase requests on stuff that they were hoping to get, and then they were waiting, and so then they stalled. They're like, okay, I can keep looking, but do I keep looking? Where they had to open up extra tabs and leave them open, waiting to find out if they could actually, if anything that they wanted was going to be theirs or not. So, I see
Isn't that what you're like when you, I loaded the WhatsApp onto my phone just in case, because isn't that what I mean, I guess if you were to insist that everybody use everybody had phone numbers and use texting, then it could be more like a real show where you get real, you would hope that the people that are selling have their, communication device open at that moment, and they're going to respond so that you don't get into that kind of a pickle where, you know, you don't know whether you have the piece or not, and you can continue to shop, and you're making those kinds of decisions. It's at a real show, you're at a booth and you're like, you're making a deal or you're not making a deal. So you know immediately what's happening. But yeah, it's more complicated online, obviously.
It is, and I'll just interject real quick. The thing is, it happens at a show, just kind of like Glenn suggested that. I mean, if you're a dealer, you're probably stuck at a booth, or maybe you have help and you get to walk around a little bit, but maybe you don't want to leave the booth. But it's the same thing. It's choices and what's available, and can I get over here and beat this guy to this booth? And I mean, I looked at it as kind of similar, except in the digital world. I mean, yeah, obviously, if there's a way to make it go more smoothly, great. But I think it's the same kind of pickle when you're walking around a convention.
It is, but I mean, at least if people get back to you immediately, you can make decisions. I mean, that's the real problem is if you send an email and you wait and you're waiting, you know, you don't know. You don't know if you have money or if you don't have money at that point. So.
But you know, like you or I know for a fact, because at one point I was on the phone with you, but we were like right there, phone in hand, you know, laptop. I mean, if somebody emailed, it was like there was not going to be more than two.
Well, yeah, no, we were, but I mean, you know, not everybody is that active, and some people like set up their booths and walked away. And you know, I made a couple of purchase requests that I didn't hear about like hours later. You know, so
isn't there a way, Bill, that people can just order it and it gets marked automatically on sold like a website? That was the problem.
Right. Well, that's what I think. That's one of the survey questions that I'm putting together for everybody is finding out if people wouldn't want some kind of an integrated checkout where, you know, because as a seller, just to kind of go back to that, you know, if you get you might reply to the first guy and they might not reply back to you for an hour. Now, do you put the thing? Do you mark it as sold or do you wait? You know what I mean? So everybody's at a disadvantage when we're in this.
Wanted at that price, they just mark it and it's held for them.
Right. I mean, that's where it's like
you're negotiating. That's different.
But exactly. I mean, I think Bill's right. I mean, that can be a problem if you're putting something on hold or
yeah, then they back out of it. But
and then the guy like got another piece that he wanted and then says to you, you know, I really can't afford that. And so then you're like, oh, I put it on. It's just yeah, like if you have a direct communication like a text or whatever, and you're texting back and forth in that moment, then you can make a deal and you know, and then you can move on to the next thing. And that's why I was talking about the WhatsApp thing where it's kind of like a text.
Right. Well, that is one of the questions I have on the survey that you guys haven't gotten yet is, you know, did you put in WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger as an option, and did anybody use it?
Well, yeah, I put in both and nobody used it. I mean, I communicated through email with everyone. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, then that you know, that just tells you something. It's like, you know, you try to give everybody the opportunity to utilize that, and not everybody will. And that's why this was a learning experience. That's why I'm hoping to find out, because I know other people did say they did get Facebook Messenger inquiries, but it doesn't sound like everybody did. There were certain people that didn't follow my instructions on how to put the Facebook Messenger, you know, link in there properly. That I tried to fix some of them, but again, if I wasn't so busy programming, I would have gone through everybody's booth and made sure they set up all that stuff right, so we didn't have that as a problem.
There's a gentleman that is commenting, sellers should have to be honor bound to sell at the offer price, not wait for more. Was that a problem? Because I mean, to me, a price is a price, and that's the end of it. I mean, I'm not going to like get into a bidding situation, try and jack the price up. So I mean, I don't know who ran into that situation, but that should not happen. I agree. I was surprised that somebody typed it that it was an issue.
I didn't hear of any of that happening, but I mean, I guess it's totally possible. I mean, why would they list the price and then not take it?
Right.
Yeah, that would be weird. But so I mean, go ahead.
All right, no, I was just going to ask you if we can talk about like the 18 spots. Like, how does that work for you? Like, do you feel like we can have more spots, or is 18 good? And the other thing is like, is it possible when something sells to replace one of those 18 spots? Like, how easy is that? That'd be like a good thing. And it'd be great if certain things aren't selling to, you know, to move things around during the show. Like those would be like the key things that I'd want to be as a seller be able to do. Where do you think you are on those?
Well, I mean, I can tell you that nobody really complained about the 18 pieces afterwards. I had a lot of people say that was a good thing, you know,
Yeah,
as
no,
far as like
18
as
is
a
good.
limit. Yeah.
18 is good, but I just would just like have the ability to like if something gets sold, it shouldn't have to like stay there. Like I'd like to move another piece in, and if certain pieces I feel like, well, you know, I put in pieces that were too expensive maybe for the show, and I'm realizing that cheaper things are selling, I'd like to move some cheaper things in
Right.
during the show. You know, I'd like to be able to adjust, I guess is
Right.
what I'm saying.
No, it's you know, we put in the lock because I wanted data, you know, I mean, and I felt like that was going to be the only way to guarantee it, because, you know, like some people suggested let it when pieces sell, you could cycle in a new piece. And if that was the way I did it, we'd have exhibitors who would have gone in there and just marked things as sold even when it wasn't, just so they could cycle it out. And so we would have had bad data, you know, or we wouldn't have really, you know, you wouldn't know for sure if things sold, especially when it's going through as a purchase request.
Why? I don't understand. Why would they mark it as sold? And
well, if we put in the ability for you to replace a piece when it's sold with a new piece,
right.
certain sellers would just mark things as sold when they were in that position of wanting to cycle in something new if something wasn't selling.
Not if you had the ability to cycle in things anyway, then
if they already had that, they could just keep adding more pieces.
Bill's saying from a data capture standpoint, I mean, I think that's kind of cynical. I mean, I agree with you, Bill. There probably are some that would do that. I mean, but I also think it's a little cynical, because I think most wouldn't. But I get what you're saying, that you're trying to capture the data. That's
well, I wanted to be able to know for certain that when we do this again, I'm going to be able to say these are the sweet spots for sale prices, and so that I can help you guys sell better the next time. You know, I would target these price ranges and be able to say that, you know, these sold at a higher percentage than these other ones. But, you know, $15,000 pieces aren't out of the question, because there were, you know, I think 5 or 10, you know, I don't even know what the numbers I'm not looking at now, that sold for decent amounts.
I think most of us knew that, you know, 500 to 5,000 or even 500 to 3,000 was sort of the sweet spot. But I mean, I know, you know, I had pieces more in those price ranges. And then sort of at the last minute Friday night, I decided to put in some bigger pieces to kind of mix it up. I had a couple things under 500, and I had a couple things over 25,000. I mean,
but you did sell a big piece though, didn't you? You sold, yeah. So, I mean, so you just never know, right? At the end of the day,
that's what I'm saying. I mean,
I had in mind that I was going to, you know, I knew the sweet spot too, but I had in mind that I wanted the booth to look a little like a show booth, you know. So and you know, reasons for people to just come and look at stuff. So
right,
you know,
put water at all levels. I mean, there's something for everybody.
Right. So there will definitely be more flexibility in the next one, because this one was, you know, just 100% to try to, you know, give something to you guys and, you know, the advertisers and the premium members. I was just, you know, I just felt like that I had a little bit more liberty to set some rules like that, while, you know, as part of the experiment, to just see if it would work, and to, you know, again, I really just wanted to walk away with a better understanding of what we could sell and what wouldn't. And so yeah, I mean, it will have more flexibility the next time.
I mean, one way, if I can just quickly, because I'm reading some of the comments here, one way that could maybe be accomplished is just increase the number of pieces. If there were 24 or 30 or 36 instead of 18, then maybe there wouldn't have to be such a need for cycling, and you could get your data lock, and some of us could get a little more variety of pieces because we could put more pieces out. So maybe that could even be the solution.
Right. And I can say, I mean, there were so many thoughts that went into it, you know, because when you go to a show, you usually bring what you're selling and you can't bring any more. And so it works in both ways. You know, there's that enthusiasm at the beginning of the show to go hit everybody's booth and see everything that they can, but then there's nothing new to see on day two. But that's how a show is, really. I mean, you know, you're doing your wheeling and dealing on the other days, but you can't bring you can only bring a finite amount with you when you go to the show.
You know, if you're at a 2-day show, you go home, you can come back with new stuff the second day. That's not really true.
If you're traveling, I mean, you know, if you're local, that's right.
If you're local, yeah.
Or if you got
I would add, like, you don't have to like replicate the show experience, you can actually make it better than the show experience. And like, you want to take like the opportunity to maybe do that. So if you can freshen up artwork on the second day, I think that makes the show more exciting for you.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the options we've talked about is being able to hold pieces, like have a second release of things on the second day, because there definitely was, like I think I told you earlier, at between 10 a.m. and noon, we had anywhere between 350 and 450 people always on the site.
Right.
And then after noon, we had anywhere between 550 and 650 people consistently on the site for the next 8 hours. But then on Sunday, we probably peaked in the morning till about 1 or 2, and it averaged maybe 380 to 400 people consistently. But
when
that,
you say consistently, you mean that there probably was more than that, but consistently somebody left, somebody came on.
Right. There's a Google Analytics lets you see how many people are actively on your site at any given time, and so I was like taking pictures just to watch it because it was fun. But yeah, that's their metric on how many people are actively clicking through and looking at pages on the site. Like, at one point, I probably can't see that. Yeah, right now it shows us 524, and when that was going on, we were loading almost 1,000 pages a minute on the site, which is ridiculous. But that's about right. You have over 500 people on the site. They're usually going to be browsing about a page every 30 seconds. And so that was.
Do you have an idea how many people like attended the show, like an overall attendance, if you will? Or
yeah, it was over 20,000
okay.
for the unique people for the 2 days. So that's pretty good. I mean,
show that's good numbers, especially and all art. I mean, there's no art show that gets pure art show. It's 20,000 people, not even close, not even 2,000 people.
Right. Exactly. Right. And and because CAF always gets on average at least 9,000 to 11,000 unique people on the site every day. So I knew we were going to get that, and I was really curious to see what was going to happen here. So you figure we probably brought in about another 4,000 to 6,000 extra people coming to the site specifically for the show. Didn't I mean, I would have liked to have sold a lot more than we did. I mean, even though we did okay, I think we could have probably done better. But maybe that comes back to the price point issue and the ability not to change the pieces. If there were more of those sweet spot prices, we would have sold more. I mean, it's hard to say, but that's why this was a learning experience. I didn't know what to expect, and I do know going forward, if we promote it properly. I mean, I didn't even put our show on all the convention sites. I only put it on the one that Colin runs, Convention Scene. But he had given me a list of 6 other places he wanted me to put it on, and I didn't even bother because, again, I was worried too many people know about it, and then we might end up having problems. So I kind of regret that decision now because I know that we would have brought in a lot more eyeballs had I done that.
I mean, how much can you handle? Do you have an idea of like what that is, or what those numbers?
No, I think we could easily handle 2,000 people on the server at the site at one time, without question. I mean, now that I've seen what it can do, again, I just wasn't anticipating that. So live and learn. I mean, but you figure everybody being on CAF, they weren't on your site, they weren't on Will's site, they weren't on Mike's site. Whereas because normally in the normal course of a day, all your sites are on my same server, right? So normally CAF might have 150 people on it, but there's going to be 5 people over there, 10 people over there, 8 people over there. I should have realized that when I host almost 30 other dealer sites, that the number of people across all those sites at any given time is probably 400 or 500 people. But I only see what's on CAF because I don't pay attention to how many people are on yours. I should have known that we could have probably handled a much greater audience than I was expecting, because again, they're not on your site at that time. They're all hitting CAF looking at what's for sale.
Right.
I know what upgrade I'm asking for next time, Bill.
Uh-oh. So, sorry, I have not been paying attention to a lot of the comments and questions.
Quick to answer questions. Someone asked, the big piece that I sell was the Marvel Team Up 81 cover by Al Milgram pencils and Steve Lealoa inks.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's true. Now, did you have that on your site before the show, or was that
I did
newly
not.
added? That
I
was a
did
new one.
not.
Wow,
I
where'd you
think-
get that great piece from,
Oh
Will?
man, it evades me. I mean,
You get it from me?
I don't
Well,
know. It came from somewhere. Glenn might have been there when I, worked out the deal, but that we gotta just trade
Right.
secret this stuff. So, but
All right.
yeah, it came from the great beyond.
Wherever it came from, it was quite a cover.
It was nice. That was one of my favorite pieces in the show, and I think the reason I felt like you had it up before that was that I had previews of some of the art that was in there leading up to the show, and I probably saw it while I was doing.
You might have
searches.
seen it at the show. I picked it up at. I met the person I did the deal with at a show, so you might have even seen it there because I think you were at that show. So you might have, flipping through the folio, I might have shown it to you.
So, Berkey, you're awfully quiet over there.
Yeah, no, I was saying about the con. When I put my 18 pieces in, I said, honestly, going into it, I wasn't expecting much. I was saying if I sold 2 pieces, I'd be happy. And I sold 3 at the show and 2 right when the show ended. So, after the show, guys called me privately and worked out deals. So to me, 5 out of 18, that's pretty good to me. So I was pleased. So, but I do know that the only thing I had was a couple people were asking me about the same piece, and I remember trying to do the sold thing, and I was wondering. I did mark it. I remember going on and marking it sold, but I think the price still showed. It didn't say sold on the website. Is that correct? It still keeps the price up, I think.
Unless you just erase the price.
Right.
I figured if you mark it sold, something would pop up. I didn't know.
It wasn't a conscious decision. But
that's okay. It'll all be worked out. I'm not complaining.
It did. Well, all I'm saying is it showed the price and it showed the word sold in red right beside it.
Oh, did it? I didn't know.
Right.
Well,
and then
that's only if you went into the setup and marked it as sold. If you just like wrote sold in the description, that wasn't going to do anything.
The drop down and marking it sold.
Yeah. Because some people I noticed
didn't
do that. They couldn't figure it out, so they just wrote
It took me a while to figure it out too. So
yeah.
But
you could also in the art search at the top of each of the pages, you could change. There was a status right next to the search button, to the left of the search button, that said for sale. You could change that to sold, and you could see all the sold items. Because I know throughout the show, I was curious. I mean, not like every hour, but every now and then I was checking what's sold.
Oh, that's cool to see sold items. I didn't know that.
But a lot of people, I don't think, were aware of that because I explained that to at least 2 people over the weekend.
Well, we threw that in at the end because I wanted to see it too.
No, it's a cool feature.
No, it was good.
Right.
It was definitely good.
Right, because I felt like it would be it's educational for all of us, and maybe that would be the way for you guys to you'd see what was selling, and I don't know. I thought that was kind of part of the excitement for me in the first hour to see how what had been marked as sold, and then by noon, because my feeling was that I really, and this is just me and the way I approached it. I felt like I wanted people coming in at noon to see a lot of sold art, and I wanted people to see that that there's value to being a premium member, and it wasn't just which isn't limited to this show, but I wanted people to see that. I wanted them to think that maybe next time I should do this, because a lot of people have said that the 2-hour window wasn't enough time for premium members to really look through everything they wanted. And I think that over time, it's going to become more challenging because, if we have double the exhibitors next time, because really a lot of dealers didn't participate. A lot of them didn't know about it. I don't know how, but they didn't. When you have double the amount of exhibitors, that's going to really cut into your 2 hours of preview time to be able to hit all the places you want. Because like you guys did a really good job of announcing that you were going to be there and maybe teasing the artists you were going to bring. The most viewed booth, and I don't have all the data. I just remember it because I looked at it earlier, was like Cadence Comic Art had the most viewed booth. They didn't come in until 24 hours or less. And I kind of had to ask them to do it, and they did it. But they went out and aggressively hit all their social media and their mailing lists right before the show. So their booth was, by far had the most traffic. It was kind of crazy when I looked at it. So the thing is, when we do these, whether they're 3 months out or they're 4 months out, when a dealer's able to commit to doing it and they know 30 days out and they're letting their people know, the show is going to be that much better attended, and people are going to be, and there'll be more art, and that people are going to be more aggressive about targeting booths. Like a lot of people wanted to target Albert's booth to see what he was going to bring, because he kept teasing all the stuff on Facebook that he was bringing to the show. But clearly, Cadence, and then there was I forget the other rep. I mean, Mark Hay had done a lot of promotion ahead of time. His booth might have been number 2. Tatiana was like number 5. So the rep booths got a lot of attention, probably because of the social PR that they did in the days leading up to it. So it's only going to get more aggressive, and I think that the value of the early access is going to be more important, especially when commission lists get filled up quick or choice pieces are going to get taken, and that 2-hour window might not be enough. We might have to make it 4 hours or something. I mean, there were people on CGC forum that were saying you should only let the premium people in the first day and let everybody else in on day 2, which of course I could never do, but 2 hours might not have been enough to get
Bill,
through.
I'm getting nervous. It sounds like our booths, since you didn't mention them, were 18, 19, and 20.
There were 175 booths.
Okay.
I just kind of remember glancing
all
through
that matters is the end of the day, the sales, the number of eyeballs,
Exactly. Right now. Well.
I mean, more eyeballs better. I appreciate eyeballs, but just saying. I mean,
hey, listen, there's a lot of dealers at the shows. They have the greatest booth ever, and then at the end of the day, they sell like one piece, so it's like a museum. So I'd rather sell than throw off a great booth and not have any sales.
I agree. Well, but that's just with this. That was what was nice about the 18-piece thing, was that as well as I do, when you guys go to the show, you don't even sell typically 1% of what you bring. And here, like Mike, you just said he sold 5 of 18. So
I would take issue. I think Glenn would probably take issue with that, just because we don't have 4,000 or 5,000 plus people. So
that's true.
I probably don't sell 10%, but yeah, I definitely sell more than 1%.
Right. That's true. You guys have
on the size of your,
our whole the way we operate is we kind of curate, our inventory and rather than bringing bulk, we try and just bring pieces that we hope people will want. So.
Sorry, I was just reading some comments. No, I agree. I mean, when Hans is with you, he brings. I mean, you usually bring what you can carry on a plane. You're not shipping boxes of extra stuff.
Or make one trip with 1 or 2 trips.
Exactly. But I mean, I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of like Mike or Anthony or Albert. If they're going to the show, they're going to be bringing a lot more stuff. Or I know like Mark Hay, he reps a lot of guys, but when he travels to shows, he's usually only bringing portfolios for guys that are going to be with him at the show. But still, that's still bringing a lot of material, at the end of the day.
Hey guys, we're having an earthquake here, so it's small. I'm still here, but I'm just letting you guys know I might be out of here in a minute.
I told Glenn, I said if my power goes out, I forgot to tell you guys, it's because we had this massive storm and tornado, and strange days.
Well, you guys should move to Ohio, where we only have to worry about the cold.
Is it cold today, Mike?
No, it's actually 80 degrees and perfect today.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I always said I'm going to retire near Berkey. That way we can do plenty of art deals. I could just walk, four doors down or something.
Instead, you get a nice house. That's what Jim D'Amico does. And a couple. Matter of fact, the guy from one of the pieces I sold at the con, a guy in Wisconsin ordered it for a friend of his, was local, and he actually came over and got the piece Saturday night. He goes, "Yeah, I held it for my friend. I knew he'd want this piece, this McGinnis Hulk double spread splash with 2 Hulks punching." He goes, "I held it for my buddy. He's been looking for that for years." I said, "Oh." He drove over my house that night, and we did the deal at the front door. And he came and hung out with me for an hour, and we talked art. It was pretty cool.
Wow. This Daniel Cerna asked a question about moving the site to like a cloud provider or something like that. Basically, I don't think we would, because we host our own equipment, our own web servers and SQL servers, but it's definitely a consideration to move the show to its own domain. Somehow still have ties into CAF. But one of the things that I heard from a number of people who were first timers to CAF they found it a little confusing because, those of us who've been on CAF for 17 years, I mean, we know where everything is and how to navigate. And even though I replaced the eBay bar with all Comic Art Live stuff, people who were unfamiliar with CAF found the whole site just kind of daunting, to see all these ads and things. And it just didn't make sense to them that once they were in Comic Art Live, it was easy to kind of navigate art or the search or the booths. So it's a consideration to move it to its own domain, but I don't foresee moving it to a different kind of hosting environment for sure. That wouldn't make sense for the way we've kind of built everything. I'm not sure where that ping is coming from, but
Ding ding. Story about original art. How about original art that was destroyed?
Oh, I have a destroyed art.
Will, that was probably from last week. Weren't you going to talk about there was some place that had water damage or something? Wasn't that?
Honestly, to really tell the story properly, I have to go talk with a buddy of mine because he spoke with the owner of that warehouse. I mean, he told me the story, but this was many years ago. It's not that I can't tell the story, it's that I can't tell the story with all the details and facts. I just have the general broad strokes of it in my head. So if I could put that off maybe another week or so, I'd probably tell a better story with it.
Okay, that answers that. But so at the end of the day, Comic Art Live went well, and it sounds like it could have gone better. Yeah. Thank you. It will go better next time. Definitely will. But so here would be a question, and I'm going to guess it probably wouldn't make sense for any of you guys, but back to that the challenge of letting when you've sold a piece and collecting the funds and being back and forth between a buyer and seller. Would it make sense for you guys to have a way for a person to do a buy it now that literally is a buy it now, that somehow was able to do a transaction that you knew completed the deal, marked it as sold, nobody else can inquire about it, the money's in there, and especially if it gave you the confidence to then remove the item and add another item, would e-commerce happening through the site be a benefit to you, or would it be something you'd consider if there was an easy way to do it?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Oh, buy it now, I think would be perfect. That way, since people are on CAF, you'd like to think that you have their information that they can't, so they don't back out of the deal afterwards or something.
No, I think Bill is actually saying you'd have a mechanism attached to it where they can pay, like PayPal.
Pay right then. But what if they want to send you a check?
Well, but that could be. I guess it's an option. But if they don't buy it now, then they know they're doing a purchase request where they're trying.
Well, I'd like to think you're honoring your deal. Yes, I'm going to pay that price. Let me put it on hold so nobody can get it. That'd be great if I.
Right. Well, it's just something we were looking into. There's options out there where you can basically have like a master merchant account and have other people be sub merchants under it. So literally, you could I could pick a piece of Will's and a piece of Glenn's, put them in a cart, and pay for it, and it would route the funds to the right place. So or you could do it where you don't even have a cart. It's just everything's a buy it now. It might mean you have to make multiple purchases, but for the guy that wants to submit 5 purchase requests, that'd be pretty good, right? If he could just buy all 5 pieces, the dealer knows or the seller knows he got the money, the buyer knows he got the art, and I don't know. In a way, I think that might be a better experience because.
So how would that be, like through PayPal? Like how would you do it?
There's a couple services. PayPal doesn't have that set up. There's a service called Stripe that has it. Because they have like a commerce system for sites like ours where you might have multiple sellers underneath a overhead, a main account. They didn't really give any good examples, but so the thing is, there's services out there for that.
Is there a cost associated with that, like a percentage, the way like a credit card company?
It would be like the same thing as a credit card processing. Yeah, whatever, you're 2.7% and 30 cents a transaction or whatever. But but looking at it, it would require us to do a bit more programming, obviously. So we're trying to weigh the pros and cons of adding in something like that. I think buyers would be happier I think sellers would be happier too. But it's like it would still have to be an opt-in process, and I believe either way, like I would have to apply for it as a site. You then have you guys apply underneath it, so that it would need to be done in advance of the show, certainly, if we were going to offer something like that.
Would that be the only way to do it? Also,
No, not at all. It would be an opt-in, right?
Hey, listen, let's not get too far into the weeds with this. I think we might lose some interest here.
That makes sense.
Maybe a survey amongst CAF users, and
yeah, that's what we're going to do.
Back and we can discuss. But I'm just saying, I think we're getting into the nuts and bolts.
That is
Mike,
true.
somebody wants you to tell your story of what art was destroyed.
It's sort of a horror story. Yeah. Just last year, I almost don't really want to say that, but anyway, I bought some art. I bought some art at an auction house.
Oh, I think I know this one.
And I bought some magazines, also some Erie magazines. I said, oh, there's a lot of like 50 Erie magazines for $40. I'm going to read some Eries for $1 a piece. So I bought that with a 1955 Peanuts Daily with Charlie Brown and Schroeder at his little toy piano. That was in the deal with also a bunch of Don Perlin werewolf pages. So I pay for the art, and I'm waiting to get my package, and I get the box, and it's just the magazines. And I call up, I said, hey, I got the magazines. I didn't get the art. And they go, everything was shipped in one package. I go, well, it's like 12 by 10 by 10. There's no way you could have gotten a Peanuts Daily even folded in there. They go, no. They go, show us the box. I show them the box. They go, no, that was the box in the bigger box. I go, I only got a small box. Here I call FedEx, and I find out that the big box, they put the art flat on the bottom of a big box, put the small box of magazines in it. The big box got damaged. FedEx assumed everything was packaging, opened up the box. Since the box was damaged, they opened up the box, cut out the label on it, stuck it on the small box, sent me that, and threw everything else away. So the pages and the Peanuts Daily got destroyed. Yeah. And I was livid. And I have to say, I have the CIA insurance, and they covered it and sent me all my money back. But a beautiful, beautiful 1950s Peanuts Daily got destroyed, and a stack of about 10 Don Perlin werewolf pages got destroyed. And I just can't believe that. It just blew my mind. I go, why wouldn't they contact me to say, hey, do you want this damaged box? But they just, on their own, somebody at FedEx said the box is damaged. Oh, they just took the inside box out, slapped the label on, threw everything else away. And that was just devastating. So also about 25, in the 90s, I have to say, a Spidey 9 page, an Electro Steve Ditko page. Guy sent it to me in Masonite. And don't ask me how, it got broke in half. It just left in my front door. Now, this was when Ditko, it wasn't a great battle page, but it was a page. And I mean, at the time, I think it was valued at like $2,500. And I said, I want my money. And I had insurance, and I gave them the Spidey 9 page and got my money. And they kept it because it cut the page in half. And I just said, I'm not taking it. And that was my own. And one other thing, just a huge Hulk painting. This is probably 18 years ago. Huge Hulk painting. UPS guy left it on my front porch. I live in the middle of nowhere, sort of, back then at my house, 2 houses ago. And it was the deuce that I was playing Santa Claus for a nursing home. He lives it on the front porch. I never got it. And I had all these people come over. It was like an $18,000 Kirby Hulk piece. Big pinup, a poster piece. I never got it. And the UPS guy goes, well, I left it there. Had to be signed for. A bunch of these insurance agents came to my house, and I got paid for it. Those are my 3 horror stories in 32 years. So I guess that's not too bad, but that's all of them.
Well, it sounds like I'm not going to be able to complete that Spider-Man 9 story.
Yeah.
I think that happened 20 years ago. You couldn't complete.
I always hear that even stuff damaged, they have auctions and sell the stuff off. So I don't necessarily know if it got destroyed. I don't know if the post office or FedEx. I can't remember if that was a FedEx or a post office at the time. I think it was a FedEx. I heard that they have auctions and they auction stuff off if it's damaged. I don't know.
They do, but a lot of times somebody within the company is aware. They don't always advertise, and usually somebody in the company that maybe collects comics, gets it for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. So But
That's
that's
tough.
my story.
Well, as long as it never shows up on the market, right?
Yeah, I do have one other. Just real quick story of just fate amazingly saving my butt. One of the last deals I had done with Mitch Ickowitz was he was selling a bunch of John Romita dailies, and I thank Mitch. If Mitch is watching, thank you, Mitch. I was second in line when he was selling off at John Romita's all his dailies and Sundays. After he had cherry picked the best ones, Mitch was selling 460 dailies and 70 Sundays. 25 bucks in 1996 now. $25 a daily, $50 a Sunday. 460 dailies, 70 Sundays. It was 15 grand. I didn't have the money, but Mitch was nice enough. He let me send him a bunch of art. He said, after 1 year, whatever's left, you pay. After 1 year, it was $14,000, and I had only owed him $1,000. But the funny part was he sends me this big box with styrofoam, huge box. And I didn't know the popcorn balls, the little popcorn things. And he had all the dailies in stacks of like 50 inside. So I'm filling a stack of 50, pulling them out, stealing a stack of 50, pulling them out, pulling the Sundays. I take the box, throw it on my front lawn because trash is the next day. Not thinking anything of it. I felt my hand running. I got everything. Out of the blue, my buddy who's into comics, he comes over my house. He's my accountant. Out of the blue, he just says, hey, you got a big box. I need a box to ship something. I go, yeah, it's on my front lawn for the garbage man. Obviously, I get the box. We dump it all out. There was one more stack of 50 dailies.
Oh,
I go, holy.
Oh my God.
I said, I owe you. I can't believe it. There was a stack of 50 still in there, and I didn't see it. I don't know if it was pressed underneath on the side. So by my buddy coming over my house and asking for a box, I saved 50 John Romita Spider-Man daily strips.
fine in the bulk, Berkey.
Listen, Mike, don't set the dogs on me, but I'm coming to your house and looking around your grounds for.
I know that would have been
hours.
that would have been almost a horror story like the Spidey 6 getting eaten by the beagle years ago. Back in
I always heard it was a big dog. Is it a beagle?
people thought it was a German Shepherd. It was actually a beagle that ate the Spidey 6 book in 1984 or 5.
The real horror story is how parts of it were retrieved to be reattached.
Yeah, what, they made the dog throw up or something?
Oh no, other end.
Oh my
Really?
God. Come on.
I don't know about that.
That's not true.
I don't know about that.
Will likes to make stuff up.
But people
I haven't heard that story.
People thought it was a big dog. It was actually a beagle. The guy comes every year to San Diego. We always have a fun chat about the story. He actually returned it. It was Gary Dolgoff who said it. UPS guy just threw it in the yard when it was supposed to be signed for, and the guy's beagle just ate up the story. Now, not all the pages, just a fair
So
amount.
please, everyone, feed your dog properly and give him lots of treats.
Yeah. So that's a horror
You're a
story.
collector with a
In the
dog.
house, yeah. So,
Wow.
So we were going to talk a little bit about Comic Link, right?
yes.
What did you guys think? I it's funny. I was just tracking like 6 or 7 items, and so I went to look at those mostly, and just based on those items, I thought I thought the auction was like gangbusters. I was really surprised that the ASM 90 did 122K. I thought it would do like 100, and in fact, I remember, Will, you offered me that. I've never really liked that cover that much, and you offered it to me years ago for 30K, and I think I turned it down.
No, I had to be before. I sold it long before it was worth that.
Okay, maybe it was a little less, but at any rate, I turned it down, and I'm thinking that might have been a mistake.
Yeah, I picked that cover up.
Selling it.
I picked that cover up in 1995 for $4,000.
Okay, all
And
right.
my big deal
I
when I
must have bought it off you shortly thereafter for like $5,000 or something.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was surprised at again, just like Heritage, I was surprised at how well, there were some things that went reasonably, but again, I thought it for Comic Link a very, very strong showing at a time that the economy should be faltering, and again, I'm just very, very surprised to see how the market is holding up.
It's funny because we were discussing it, Glenn, as you know, and yeah, you were like, "Wow, it's a really strong auction," and I said, "Yeah, on some things, and other things, kind of reasonable." You know,
right? Yeah. Well, then
There
you,
were
like,
some
then
things.
you pointed me in the reasonable direction, which I guess.
But it's just funny, like
while the auction is going on.
And I think this is true of many auctions, that, you know, someone's impression can be more based upon what they're following, what their own interest in is, instead of looking
Sure.
at the totality of it. So, I mean, I'm not too surprised though that some things are doing well, because I've always said in economic downturns, I think collectibles tend to do pretty well. And yeah, there'll be some things that suffer, that don't do quite as well, but overall, I think, you know, that it's about what I'd expect from that auction. So, what do you think, Mike?
I have to confess, I was the underbidder on the Spidey 90 cover. So
Okay.
Of course you
I
are.
wanted to get it back because I have all the sequence at the end where Captain Stacy dies in my collection. So I thought, it'd be sort of cool to get it back.
You know, I originally sold that because I was like, oh, it's not pure Ramita, it's Kane Ramita, and
The first cover they ever work on together.
I know. And then later on, just a few years later, I'm like, you know, Kane Ramita, I mean, some of those covers are just as good and in some ways better than some of the pure Ramita. You know, it's good piece.
Well, I always say, I love John Romita's line where John says, he goes, I loved working with Gil Kane, but whenever I worked with Gil Kane, I should have gotten paid for penciling and inking. I go, why is that? He said, because Kane would do the greatest backgrounds with the greatest effects with buildings and stuff, then Spider-Man would be a stick figure, so I'd have to redraw him fully. And I told him, I go, well, that's the beauty of it. I go, you get Gil Kane's great paid setups, and yet you still get a Ramita Spider-Man out of it.
He does great layouts. He does great composition work as far as setting up the scene, and then John fills it in beautifully with the detail.
They're a beautiful combination.
To me, Kane Ramita stuff is phenomenal. Just, you know, when they worked together in '89 and '90, and the drug issues, and a little later with all the death of Gwen and Goblin and all that stuff. Great stuff.
The other thing that really stuck out to me was the Hulk 343 McFarlane cover. I mean, that's got to be a record for McFarlane Hulk piece, $66,000.
McFarlane Hulk piece, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, I actually I had that cover. I bought it for like $30,000 like a few years ago, and I had sold it to a guy for I think like $49,000, and he paid me $1,000 down, and then couldn't go through with the deal, and I had to raise some cash for some expenses that I had, so I threw it into Comic Link, and it did, I think like 26,000 or 28,000. So
what year?
Just a few years ago.
Like maybe 7 years ago, maybe.
That no, not like
Less?
I mean, like probably four or five at the most.
Got to
But,
be 5.
yeah. But at any rate, I mean, it was pretty surprising to see it do 66K. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, think about it, the
Same
Spidey
venue.
all over 100 for anything good, so you got to figure it's. I guess people feel it should be worth at least half of a good Spidey, and it went for about that. So
There's a lag. I mean, you know, that's the thing. A lot of times, whether
that's
you're
one of the better
collector-
Hulk covers.
It is, but whether
Yeah,
you're
it's
collector,
There's only 4 pure McFarlane Hulk covers too, so
true.
that's a good one.
But
But,
sometimes there's a lag with pieces, like something that, you know, for the longest time there, you know, there's pieces that you see that you feel are underpriced, underappreciated, and you know, maybe you sell them, you make a nice profit, and then like 2 years later they just take off like a rocket. You know, there tends to be a lag. You know, some people have the eye and can kind of see what's coming down the pike. And I think, Glenn, at the time that you had it, I said, man, if you could hold that thing a couple more years, I think you'd do better. But you had too much going on at the time.
It comes down to choices. I mean, I think that's a lot of what this hobby is you know, I mean, when pieces come up or bills or whatever is in your face, you know, you have to sell certain things that, I mean, I think a lot of us do. Some of us don't have that problem. Like you, Mike, maybe. I don't know.
What's that? About what?
Having to sell pieces to finance other things. But
I do sometimes. I just sold a Battle Page of Spidey 75 to a guy that came to my house. I sell collection stuff, but if I get my price, it's all good. It goes.
Yeah, no. I'm really referring to like a situation where you have to sell, not a situation where you get your price.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I think a lot of collectors are in that scenario. They get offered things that are more desirable to them, and then they have to make choices, and I mean, things are expensive enough so that you can't own it all.
Right, sure. Hey, I saw somebody's asking about the DC stuff. I will share about yesterday. DC stuff more reasonable than Marvel art, and I totally agree. I will say I spent a fair amount of money yesterday in the auction for stuff. I bought I'll tell people on the CGC Burkett tell me I'm the flip of the day. I don't really care anymore. And but I bought the Neil Adams Writes in Ink Green Lantern page for $4,800. I think it's worth 1.5
That
to
was
2 times
reasonable. That was very reasonable.
I bought the Aparo Brave and Bold cover. I think it's worth a lot more than what I paid. I bought the John Buscema Marvel 2-in-1 cover. I think it's worth more than what I paid. And I bought one or two other things. But in general, I thought actually covers like from the 90s up, I thought went a lot higher than what I was expecting. That was my surprise out of it. Because Comic Link gets a lot of stuff from the 90s, 2000s covers wise.
Right.
See, and I thought they went pretty well. I follow all that stuff.
Well, that market seems hot now. I mean, I'm selling a lot of 90s pieces.
Yeah, and I know it's weird. I still consider just how I am. I still consider anything 1990 and up. I call it new art, even though it's 20 and 30 years old.
30 years old, yeah.
Post 1990 new art. Whenever they stop putting logos on covers, that's new art to me. So
Right.
that was like around 96, I think they started. 95, 96, they started doing that. Whenever they started going digital logos and stuff, to me, that's all new art. And I call that new art generation of the past 25 years. But I thought in general, the prices were pretty reasonable, other than a couple things that, in my opinion, fell through the crack, so. But overall, I thought the auction did well.
Again, it's all what you pay attention to, but I think overall it was a mix. Just like sometimes I'll hear about, Heritage allows a very strong auction, which yes, there were some pieces that went, above expectations, but you can find just as many pieces that do just about what you expect or under. I mean, that's most auctions. It's a real mixed bag. It just really depends on what you pay attention to.
Absolutely, positively. Like I said, so much stuff used to get offered to us back in the day before auctions, and I don't get stuff offered to me. People, I always say, so you know what? I'll buy at auction. If I don't get San Diego, every year San Diego, I used to pick up between 100 and 200 pieces of art. Yeah. Every San Diego con from 96 to like 2010, 12. Now I pick up 10, 20 pieces maybe.
I could look forward to picking up 10, 20 pieces from your pile from Sam. Not even going.
So, if I have money, I hunt out and try to find stuff at auction that falls through the cracks, in my opinion. So it happens.
Well, I'll tell you the one thing that these past two auctions have shown me is I think, the collectibles market is definitely, has still a lot of strength in it. And I'm much less nervous about, the upcoming July and August auctions. I really don't think, I think they're going to perform the same way at this point. I mean,
I agree with you. I was actually very, very nervous in March. I really thought there was an economic crash. I was really worried, and I feel better now.
The last
in general, I really thought there was going to be a crash.
In 07, which is the closest data point we have. I think it was 07 or was it 08? But
it was 08.
I mean, the year started off slow and it just really got strong. I mean, that was like one of my best years, and I've noticed, like I said, economic downturns, it seems like people want to put their money into tangible items. So I wasn't too worried. I was just worried that it might slow down, for a while, but I knew it would pick up, but it really didn't slow down much, this go around. So
now is July the next Heritage Signature auction?
Yeah, July.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't looked at the preview for that, so I don't even know what they've got.
Well, these things are happening more frequently, so.
There is one big auction every month, that's for sure. It seems like.
Like I said, a lot of stuff comes out and it still gets bought up.
I think that's actually the more surprising thing, the amount of stuff that's come out at auction, and it's still going pretty strong versus, you know, this economic turmoil that you know most of the country is in. So, you know, that's almost as surprising because there is a lot of stuff coming out, but it all seems to find a home.
Yep.
Certainly does. So hey, we're at our hour now. Will, we should probably task you with making sure that you're ready to tell your story next week. Right?
I'll make a phone call. The person he actually just Facebook messaged me in the middle of the night, but I'll put a call in.
Okay. I think that would be. I mean, clearly people want to hear it. Not that we want to hear disaster stories for the hobby, but you know, I think that you know.
Do you know how much art was on the Titanic that I can't even talk about?
We might be able to get that back.
For McKay's, yeah.
All right. Well, and so we'll be on Tuesday next week, right, guys? We have nothing to watch like Comic Link last night, so we'll be on Tuesday, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, then we'll see you again next Tuesday, and thanks again for tuning in.
Sounds good. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.